Hey, what's up? Welcome to Degen Ed. That's degenerative education, meaning none of us is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts like the chart behind me, which is of Sunrun, ticker symbol RUN. And so I wanted to be going over this chart today because on Thursday, February 22nd, Sunrun closed down almost 18% on the day at a closing price of $12.78 after recently reporting earnings. And so I just wanted to go over some levels that do stand out as being potential support. I do think we are nearly there, but I do think there is a little bit more downside in store for the stock. And so, yeah, just to get started on that, basically I do have this uptrending level of support that price had recently broken below, but it does go back pretty far in time. If I do switch over to the weekly time frame, we can see that it is based on this low price here around the middle of November 2016, and that is at a price of $4.15. And the other pivot point is the low over here in around March of 2020, just before this big run up. And yeah, so with that, there were a couple breaks of the level. There was, I believe, 2 daily closes below it. But if we do zoom in on that, we can see that while there was one close below that trend line, the second close did not put in a lower close. So that signaled that this was not acting as confirmation, also putting in this hammer candle that suggested there could be a reversal. And then the following day, we saw a gap above that trend line. So while this does seem like we got a break below that level, it was actually a fake out because we could not get confirmation, even though we saw lower prices that day, that following day on November 9th, 2018. We did not close below that low, so that negated the breakdown, and then we saw the reversal. So a key thing to note there. But yeah, then if I do look at this on the weekly time frame, we can see that following that fake out, we did get pretty big moves to the upside, and then the test following March 2020, we went from $7.84 all the way up to over $100 in less than a year, just about 10 months. So pretty remarkable there. But then looking back on the daily time frame, we can see where these lines originate from. I do have one right around $11 at $10.96, which was the low on October 11th, 2018. And following that, does look like it served as some resistance, and later on had served as support and resistance as well. Then I have this orange line right around $10 at $10.16 was the high over here, but then where the yellow line served as resistance, orange served as support. And then also I do have this line right around $9 at $8.81, the red line. And so looking at all of those lines, they do look like they were pretty significant before this dip here, all kind of acting as varying levels of support and a little bit of resistance. But then ultimately, they acted as support here collectively before we got this big run up to, over $100. And more recently, they have all been revisited with the dip below that white trend line. And so I do think that they could be revisited again in the near future. And so looking at these levels with the uptrending level of support, that white line, that would be bringing price right around to the low here that was hit on January 19th. And that is at a price of $12.29, so a little bit lower than current price. But then just below that, you might notice this blue line at a price of $11.95, or right around $12. That was the high on November 28th before we got a little gap up that was not filled and has never been filled. So I do think it's quite possible we will be returning to right around $12 to fill that gap. And then also, the yellow line before there, just around $11, $10 with the orange line, and just below that, you might notice this other blue line, another gap that still needs to be filled, and that is at a price of $9.59, which was the high on November 13th. So I do think that we could be returning to that level. And then really like the last line of support that I do see is the red line at $8.81. But really with all of these levels, I do think that the psychological round number around them, could just as well serve as support, like $12, 11, 10, $9.50, and $9. But one final thing that I do want to throw up on here is a Fibonacci retracement. And so if I take that retracement from the low here at $8.43 and bring that up to $20.68, we can see some levels here that do stand out. So following hitting the high of $20.68, we did retrace here to the 618 at $13.11, dipping a little bit below that, but ultimately finding that as support before running up to test the 382 as resistance at $16, again around number being psychological there, pulling back again to the 618 and then going back up to test the 236 at $17.79. And so now that price is currently below the 618. I could see price returning to the level at the 786, and that is at a price of $11.05, nicely corresponding with this yellow line here. So I do think that ultimately price will be returning to right around $11 a share. But I do think that it will bump into some support around the white trend line, around this gap here, right around $12 a share. So if we do see some consolidation around $12, I could see that as being a bear flag before we do break lower to test $11, if not lower than that. So do prepare for the downside, as I do think it is coming, but I do think we might see some consolidation and then maybe a test and rejection of the 618 or possibly the 50% level at $14.55 before ultimately coming down to right around $11. But I do think that if price does come lower, I do think it is quite possible that the RSI may dip lower than the previous lows over here, which was, let's see, around 2407. And so if we do see lower lows in the RSI, but price remains higher than $8.43, that would be hidden bullish divergence. And so once we do start to see the RSI forming a bottom, if it is lower than the lows over here and price is higher than the lows over here, we would likely see a pop after that. So, while we do have to prepare for the downside, I do think eventually we will be seeing some hidden bullish divergence and a return to these levels to the upside. But, those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks a lot for watching.